Hello and welcome to the USCCA studio for tonight's live training broadcast. This evening's topic is entitled, How to Prepare for, Prevent, and Stop a Mass Shooter Threat in Places like Houses of Worship. Hi, my name is Tim Schmidt. I'm the president and founder of the United States Concealed Carry Association. Now, tonight's topic has been in the news a lot lately with recent tragedies in Pennsylvania and California. On behalf of every member of the USCCA family, I just want to say that we mourn for the victims and their families. They are all in our prayers. You know, it's heartbreaking, it really is. And I know that every time something like this happens, it can make us feel helpless. So I'd like to take a moment to really highlight why we do this live training for you and for every member of the USCCA family. You see, at the end of the day, it takes a special kind of person to take charge of the safety and security of the people that they love. And right now, you are proving that you are that person. You're the reason that we do this. The USCCA is here to bring you the life-saving education, training, and legal protection that you need as your family's ultimate protector. In fact, tonight, I'll be sharing even more brand new education and training benefits that are available to all USCCA members, because you deserve every advantage in your fight to protect the people that you love. All right, let's start tonight's training. Okay, here's what you can expect from tonight. Now, we're going to be here for about an hour, but I promise it's going to be worth it. Why is it going to be worth it? Because I'll be giving away not one, not two, but 3 Glock 19s all throughout the night. Now, obviously, you know that I love Glocks. 19's rugged, reliable, and quite frankly, it's the gun that I personally trust to protect my family. Now, I'll draw the winners live, so you don't want to miss your name. Plus, I'll also be revealing some never-before-seen training videos tonight, so please stick with us. You know, we've actually got over 70 USCCA employees here for this live broadcast this evening. Now, they all volunteered to stay late, and I highly recommend you take advantage of that. If you got questions or anything, you can call 877-677-1919 to talk with them right now, and our whole team also, they're available live on chat. Now, I know that many of you are members already, so thank you for being a part of the family. Honestly, guys, we're blessed to have you, and of course, we're always here to help. But if you're new, if you've never even heard of the USCCA before, here's what we do in a nutshell. We provide education, training, and legal protection so that you can confidently defend the people that you love. Every single day, I hear about the peace of mind that our members enjoyed. They know that they have access to amazing education and training benefits. They also know that they can make one phone call and get the help that they need 24/7, 365 days a year. All right, now here's the best part. Because you tuned in tonight, you qualify for some great bonuses. Now, for current USCCA members, we're giving away a bonus package valued at $609 to anyone who upgrades their membership to the elite level. Guys, that's our biggest bonus ever and includes some of the best training and a tactical knife valued at $50. Plus, I'm also going to throw in a free high-quality gun cleaning kit if you activate or upgrade your membership tonight. All you got to do is scroll down and click that button to lock in your bonuses. Now, if you're already an elite member, hey, don't worry, I've got you covered. Since you've already got the best of the best, I'm giving away a special 93% discount on our Proving Ground Volume 1 and 2 DVDs. I mean, that's insane, 93%. That's the biggest discount that I've ever offered on anything. It's just my way of saying thank you. Now, if you're brand new, this is your absolute best chance yet. Because if you activate your brand new USCCA membership today, and join this family, you'll also get that free bonus package worth up to $609. Heck, the bonus package alone more than pays for your elite membership. And I'll also toss in that free high-quality gun cleaning kit that's worth $49. So really, if you do the math, that means you're getting up to $658 in bonuses, plus the best member benefits that we've ever offered. You see, I just supercharged all USCCA memberships with exclusive new training and education benefits. Here's just a little snapshot of what those include. Weekly training drills sent straight to your inbox, access to dozens of guides, ebooks, and checklists, a member-only video library, the list goes on and on. That's all on top of your other top-notch education, training, and legal protection benefits. Trust me, guys, this is the best time to become a USCCA member. You should see all those bonuses on your screen right now. But here's the thing though, these bonuses are a special limited time offer, so don't put it off. Simply scroll down and click that button below to claim your bonuses and supercharge your membership benefits right now. Of course, it's all covered by my 100%, 365-day bulletproof money-back guarantee. I'm talking zero risk, all reward, and the peace of mind that you deserve. Again, just give us a call at 877-677-1919 or scroll down and click that big button below. Okay, it's time for me to introduce tonight's guests. I'm going to start to my right. We have, of course, as usual, Kevin Michalowski. Kevin is the executive editor of the award-winning Concealed Carry magazine. And Kevin, I think officially your title is also the director of content?
Yeah, director of content for the USCCA.
USCCA, so you're kind of the guy in charge of ultimately the production of these videos, Proving Ground videos, so thank you.
They're going really well, so thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here tonight. Next over here we have Pastor John. For those of you who watched the pre-videos, you saw Pastor John as essentially the Proving Ground trainee. Did a very, very good job. He's right here from West Bend, so Pastor John, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right, to my left, of course, we have the infamous attorney Tom Greaves. For those of you who maybe this is your first time watching the live training broadcast, Tom is one of the top criminal defense attorneys in Wisconsin. He's part of the USCCA critical response team, and he's a great asset to USCCA. He's essentially the guy that everyone that watches these live training broadcasts wants to ask questions to because he has really, really good answers. And it's fun to joke around, but obviously this is a serious topic, and Tom does a great job of addressing that. So Tom, as usual, thanks for being here.
Until you find someone better, Tim.
And last but certainly not least, we've got Ron Aguiar. Ron is the founder and CEO of Oasis Safety. And again, if you watched the videos, you saw that Ron was our primary trainer for this Proving Ground series. And as I watched through the whole video series, I was very impressed with how Ron did. So Ron, thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
All right, guys, let's dive right into the meat and potatoes. I asked Max to put together kind of a recap of the 3 videos that most of you have already watched. This will be a great way to kind of get up to speed and really be able to dive into tonight's live training broadcast. So Max, let's fire that up.
Church security is something that everybody needs to think about. Protecting houses of worship, regardless of the religious denomination, regardless of any other questions you have about it. Churches and synagogues and mosques are typically places that are thought of as safe, and people typically don't put together a security plan around that because if you think about it, it's where people go to worship. It's where people go to feel safe and calm, and it's a kind, loving area, and nobody thinks about a bad guy coming through the door. But it happens more often than we want to talk about. It's the sort of thing that makes huge news because it doesn't happen really often, but when it does, it's tragic.
Some of what God has done in my own...
Maryland! Maryland! Gun!
You got shots all over the place.
This is all your fault! Everybody get over here!
Got a gun. Where's Tom? Tom?
There's exits
He's
over
down
here.
on the chair. How many people are coming out?
Ron, that turned into a really intense firefight in that first scenario. So what do you think you did right? What do you think you did wrong?
I think he responded quickly. That's most important. There was no hesitation. I think what happened after that, though, he separated himself and sought cover like he's taught as a police officer, which is not appropriate in this situation.
So coming into another scenario, what would you teach him to do?
We're going to focus on 3 things, Kevin. So let me make some observations here. First, I think we all agree you probably need more help. You can't do it alone. Imperative, you need more help. Secondly, let's talk about the layers of security in the church to give you that help, maybe to prevent the guy from coming into the building in the first place. I think you start in the parking lot. You get your volunteers out there parking cars with their vests, give them a radio. If they see something that's unusual, somebody that may be doing harm, call you on the radio, let you know. The second layer would be the ushers and greeters. And this group here, the same deal. They may see somebody coming in the building and maybe armed, maybe acting strangely, call you on the radio. Now let's talk about a line of demarcation or some imaginary line in the front of the building.
All right, so that was a pretty good recap of what we've gone through so far. And now, as you can imagine, one of the biggest benefits and the most popular aspects of this live training broadcast that we do is all the questions. You guys have the opportunity to ask questions. And I realize over the last probably 4 or 5 days, there have been hundreds of questions submitted. And so Max here off camera has the fun job of going through all the questions and kind of prioritizing them and combining and keeping. And so he's sending questions to me. So I say we get right into the questions, and the whole panel can address those as they seem fit. But the first question here is actually addressed right at Pastor John. So you're going to be on the hot seat right away. And this first batch of questions all have to do with threat identification and maybe precautions that we can do to either help us identify the threats or how to deal with them right away. So the first question here, Pastor John, is since the training, have you taken any other extra types of precautions with respect to your parish or your church?
Yeah, actually, before the training happened, some of the things that we allowed to happen in that filming are things that we don't normally allow, things like umbrellas and strollers and people to come in unattended. But we've really taken some of the training to heart to think about even where some of our security team sits and some of the ways that they can communicate to one another that other people don't even realize that they're communicating to one another, so we can begin to identify people who are coming in who maybe we need to be aware of and be mindful of.
So when you say communicate, like hand signals or radios or
simple things like hand signals, radios, just things that cues that we can give each other to be mindful of some things and keep our ears and eyes open to things that are going on.
Huh, excellent. Excellent. All right, let's get more questions on identifying threats and precautions. So here's a question from Caleb H. How do you figure out who is a potential shooter or threat? The training video showed how hard that can be.
Yeah, and again, that's a situational awareness question. People who look out of place, typically, but it's a church. It's a welcoming facility. You know, we don't want to be profiling people as they walk in. Is this a good guy? Is this a bad guy? Or something like that. It's based on their actions. And Ron talked a little bit about this. People who are engaged in bad actions or have bad intent are typically going to do something that is not ordinary in church before they make their move. And I'll leave it up to Ron.
And I think the other thing we have to do is train our people. The ushers, greeters, parking lot people, before the person gets in the building, have to notice someone that doesn't fit, maybe acting strangely. At that point in time, somebody's got to intervene, and that's when they notify the security or safety team.
Okay.
And I think the intervention at this point, when we say intervene, there's lots of different intervention options. Sure. You're walking through there. Just walking up to say hello and see who they are and get a feel for them. We're not automatically taking aggressive action when we say we're intervening. We're just making ourselves known to them and paying attention and getting to know them.
Yeah, a lot of times it's walking up, shaking hands, and said, "Hi, I'm Ron with Community Church. Welcome. I haven't noticed you around before." Start the conversation. You'll get a better feel as to who he is.
Okay, that makes sense. Excellent. So here's the next question, guys. In terms of the size of a security team, is there an optimal size? Now, I imagine that that's probably a function of the size of the parish, the amount of people that come in there, but are there any rules of thumb? Or?
I think it depends on the size of the sanctuary and the buildings, because you're not just trying to protect the people in the sanctuary, you're talking about the children's area, in offices, in classrooms where they meet. So I think it just depends. So a size of the church that we did the scenarios in, you'd have to have 2 or 3 guys at least, I think, to protect the sanctuary, and then maybe 1 or 2 outside. Okay. It just depends the size of the building.
Yeah, absolutely. We're looking at choke points, doors, access areas, and where people congregate. Right. And typically, if someone's coming to do harm to your church, look at what door they would probably use. And that's the security evaluation you do before the services.
Right.
All right. So here's a question sent in by a fellow named Jack. He says, as an attendee, where should you sit to be the most safe if there were an incident? By a door, in the back, etc.?
Ron's smiling for this one.
It's really difficult because an exit door is great in case something happens to get out. I think that's important. But most churches, people like to sit up front, they like to sit in the middle. I just tell everybody, when you get into a situation in a house of worship or any type of place, arenas or whatever, know where the exits are. Know where the primary exit is and the secondary exit is, just in case something happens. If you're really worried, sit close to an exit.
Yeah, and we've talked about that lots of times on situational awareness briefs and things like that. When you walk into a room, figure out how to get out of it. And we saw in our first scenario, we had people going into a closet, into a locked area.
Yeah, it's
And-
one of the things we actually talked about with our church, and we did announcements from the pulpit. Out of that scenario, it made us aware of people went towards a door that they thought there was an actual exit they could get out of. There's no exit there. So we, from the pulpit for 2 Sundays, I literally stood there and pointed to people and said, where are exits? These are our actual exits. There are no exits here. There are actual exits here.
Okay.
These are how you actually need to exit our worship center. Just understanding that people don't always look for those things.
Yeah, just look for the exit signs.
Right.
And that's an exit out.
So here's another question that just came in. So let's say that, as you can imagine, a lot of the folks watching this live training broadcast right now are, they're responsibly armed Americans, right? That makes sense. So if they have a concealed carry permit, if they're well trained, do they have a responsibility, or would it be a good idea to tell the church security team, hey, by the way, I come to church armed, or is that more like, hey, that's private business? What do you guys think about that?
Well, we always tell people that you don't have a responsibility. You don't have to act in defense of others. If you're saving your own life, yes, that's important. So they need to make that decision personally. And we talked with the pastor about how do the church elders feel about this? At what point is it okay to bring this up and to talk about that? So if you're not on the security team but you're armed, then remember that you're there for yourself. This is truly self-defense. Don't get involved. There's other people who are going to do it. And I always say the best fight is when you're not in. So if you can get you and your family out of there safely, yes, I'd like you to do that. But then you have that moral question, could I have helped the rest of my fellow worshipers?
Yeah, and some churches don't allow concealed carry, except for the security team. I mean, that's becoming some fashion right now. And other churches want everybody to carry.
Right.
But I think especially in a smaller congregation, I would make the effort to let them know that I'm carrying. I
Okay.
think that's a good idea.
So certainly, probably the first step would be to figure out whether or not the congregation or whatever type of church you go to even has a security team, and then go from there.
That's correct.
Okay. All right, that was a good batch of questions. Thank you, guys. Let's move on and let's watch. So we have another video that we put together. It essentially is a training video that shows how a trained security team can actually stop a threat. So Max, if you're ready, let's roll that tape.
Let's do it again. Yeah, we can do that again. So.
Okay, all cams rolling, all 15.
So we're getting ready to get going. Let's see.
Well, I want to welcome everyone to one of our first Thursday night services. Our Thursday night services are going to be a little bit more casual, a little bit more laid back, a bit smaller crowds as we kind of anticipated and expected, but it's going to be very fun and enjoyable. We're going to have a bit more casual feel to it, a bit more contemporary feel to it. And we're excited. We hope that you'll continue to come out to be a part of it. We're looking forward to our Thursday night services and what they're going to mean for us. But I want to share with you a story. Maybe it's some directions or maybe it's some guidance that we're going to talk about from Acts 8:26-40. Maybe this passage sticks out to you. It's the passage of Philip and the Ethiopian. Philip and the Ethiopian is a story that we probably know very, 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 very well. In fact, Philip, who's one of the disciples, is traveling, and as he's going along, he encounters a scenario where there's an individual who has a situation who's going on in their life, and they have something that's coming up, and he has to intervene in that situation. He has an opportunity to talk to them. He has an opportunity to share with them the gospel and share with them what's going on. So I want to summarize the story. It's a long story. We don't have time to go through all of it this evening, but I want to share with you kind of some of the things that are going on in that story rather than reading the whole passage.
I think we've heard quite enough. I have something I need to say.
Okay.
And you folks need to hear this. This is important. Hey, whoa. No, I just need a minute, okay? Just
what do you want to talk
give me a
about?
sec. Listen. No, listen.
Go, this way! Whoa!
Much different than
Much different.
I think he felt the guy was going to carry on. Yeah.
Okay, end scenario. Okay, that was outstanding. Is anybody hurt? Give me a thumbs up if you're okay. Everybody thumbs up, not hurt. Tom, can you come up? Jake, Pastor John, come on up this way. We'll talk it out a little bit. That was outstanding. Pastor John, I saw you moving toward the door. Were you directing people, or who was shouting, "Get out, get out, get out"?
Yeah, I was encouraging people as I made my way across the stage here to get out this door, and I was even trying to help some people to get out through that exit.
Super. And Tom, you definitely took that training on crush distance to get out. You took that to heart, man. That was amazing. Exactly when did you pull your gun? What did you see? What made you draw?
He was approaching, so I know we had to close the distance, stop him from approaching up to the front. When I saw him go for his weapon, I think he got hung up. He finally got it out, and that's when I drew my weapon and put an end to that
It was
situation.
perfect timing. Yeah, it stopped everything. Jake, we wanted you to try to get all the way up here. What stopped you?
He didn't even give me a chance. As soon as I got out to the aisle, he started approaching me. I tried to draw my weapon to get him to back off a little bit. I tried to make some distance between the two of us, but he didn't even give me a chance. He was right on top of me.
Outstanding. This was a great scenario, guys. Thank you very much for being here.
All right, that was a great video. I really enjoyed watching that one. Ron, it really seemed like the security guard in the church really paid attention to your advice, which was like, hey, you got to close that distance. Because as that guy started walking toward the pulpit, I mean, he did not mess around, and he literally bowled him over.
Right, and I think that really shows from the simple training we did, just did one thing, and he stopped the shooter.
Yeah, that was fantastic. I got to hand it to you, Kevin. I can't imagine how many cameras you must have rigged up on people to get all those different shots.
Yeah, I think we were up to like 16.
16 cameras. Wow, that was neat. All right, so great video, great training. Let's get back to some more questions. I know that there's a lot of questions coming in from people because revolving around this whole concept of, well, how do we set up a security team at our church or in our congregation? Because as you can imagine, I'm sure that a lot of the folks that are watching this go to church, which is good. And so I'm not sure, Kevin, if you want to answer that, if Ron, you want to jump in, or anyone really. So what would you say is like the basics or the first steps of creating that church security team? Not only that, but not only creating it, but what's the best way to get some regular training for that team?
I think the absolute first step, as Pastor John talked about, is, and Ron said too, is talking about it. There has to be a group of people who get this ball rolling, who start, and get those answers. Is it allowed? Will your church allow it? Will your state allow it? You have to find all of those answers, and then, start asking the questions of the people who are most involved in the church.
Right. I think also you need church leadership to back it up. It won't go anywhere unless the pastor, the board of directors, deacons, or elders say, yeah, we're going to do this. And then I think you got to get your team. Find out who is a law enforcement, current law enforcement, former law enforcement, maybe some military, someone really familiar with guns and has a concealed carry, and get some training for them. I think that's where you start.
Make sure that they know the laws in the state of wherever it is that they are. Reason being is you don't need somebody getting a false imprisonment felony charge or something like that because they detained somebody, or somebody was thought that maybe they saw somebody taking $1 from the collection dish, and now as a result they're throwing them into the wall or something, which may be quite illegal in your state. So keep in mind that from the legal end, that to the extent that you're organizing this from the top down or from the bottom up, you want to make sure that everybody's protected and is informed about what's going on.
Cool, good answer. So I've got a question here. I'm not sure who this is for, but it's from my experience that Pastor John, you're kind of a unique fellow in the sense that you do carry and that you do embrace this concept of like, hey, preparation is fine, and no, I'm not paranoid. So I'm guessing that there's probably a lot of viewers right now who are in that situation where if they were to walk into their either whatever you call it, the church elders, the board of directors, whatever it is, there's probably a good chance that this group are going to be like, oh my goodness, you want to bring guns in the church? So, I mean, how do you talk to people like that? I mean, these are peaceful, loving people that feel that are under the false assumption that the absence of guns by good people is going to make them safe, but actually that's just the opposite.
Pastor John, how did you get the conversation started at your church?
For us, it was something very easy, as you said. Growing up, being around guns, being a part of that in my life, knowing that I carry all the time, just being around it, it made the question very easy for me to bring up to my board because it was so easy for me to say, I'm already invested in this. This is something I've spent thousands of hours, thousands of dollars in. This is something I want to be trained in and understand what I can do to be a part of it. When you're starting to talk about people who you don't know that question with, or you don't know who that answer is, then you just have to approach it with a loving heart and with a heart that says, hey, we care about our people who are in our pews, who are not able to defend themselves. And how do we defend them? How do we, as a church who's responsible for our people who are in our pews or who are in our chairs every Sunday morning, how do we protect them? That's more than just sharing the word of God with them. That's also being a physical security for them, protecting them from somebody bad coming in doing harm.
And I think Pastor John is an anomaly. Most churches and most pastors will not carry. Most of them don't know guns as well as John does. So I would recommend fall back on the security team.
Okay.
That's where you want it. Let the pastor focus on preaching and teaching. And I think that's what he's good for. That's what he's meant and called for.
Right.
So I'll put the gun away. Pastor John is an anomaly, so
Okay.
most congregations, the pastor will not carry.
And I think, too, it's important that you can find a starting point. When you're talking about let's not call it a security team, let's call it a safety team. And maybe we start with first aid training and evacuation training.
That's
Is
right.
there a tornado? Is there a fire? Is there some other thing that might happen that you need a safety team that will help out? And when that ball starts rolling, then we can add on the next step and the next step. And instead of just a box of Band-Aids, well, why do we have a trauma kit? Well, what if there is a shooting? And
Right.
we need to provide real first aid to people.
Yeah, before we started training our security team, we put in some very simple things like that. In our usher stand, there's a full trauma kit there. We have an AED machine. So if someone goes into a heart attack, we can attempt to try to save them. We know who our nurses and who our doctors are, just resources, so that if someone does have a medical issue, and we've had it on a Sunday morning, somebody fell over, went into an issue, our medical team, we know who they are, and they can respond to that situation and step in and try to help that person out.
Yeah, I agree totally. You'll have more medicals in the church than a security incident. So safety team and medical team is where to start.
But approaching it with that teaching attitude, I mean, just like what Pastor was preaching about, I think Philip and the Ethiopian, as I recall. So, what can you know if you don't have a teacher to teach you at the end of the day? So embrace the role of being the teacher, embrace the role of being the ambassador.
Wow, good point, Tom.
Let's try to tie it all together.
That was really good, actually.
It's nice you watch the
I thought that was my
closely,
job.
too. Good.
One more component of this, I guess the building blocks of creating a security team. There's a question that came in here from Clarence C. And his question says, is it ideal for the security team to be identified or more incognito? Now, I'm guessing that this may be some having to do with laws, but I'd like to hear what anyone has to say.
Well, for the purposes of the video, we pointed out the security person just to make sure that we know where things were going to go and what was going to happen. I'm a big fan of keeping things concealed. People don't need to know who's doing what when something bad happens, because that element of surprise, that ability for a security person to walk forward, hands out, friendly gesture, hey, why are you approaching the pulpit? That puts the bad guy, a little bit off guard and gives him the element of surprise. So, no, we're not wearing security jackets or anything like that. We're going to church. We're going to worship in what you would normally wear to worship.
Right, and I fall back on what we started discussing earlier, is that when you want to approach somebody and say, hi, I'm Ron, welcome to the church, if I have security blazing on me, that may all of a sudden put up a barrier.
Sure.
Yeah, our armed security don't wear any sort of clothing that marks them as armed security. You wouldn't know who they are unless you know that they're the security team. You would walk in on an average Sunday morning and you wouldn't be able to pinpoint who our security team was at all.
Yeah. To me, that makes the most sense.
What about doing, something? There's a reason why a lot of convenience stores and grocery stores and so forth, they have those very prominent cameras and so forth to discourage theft, to discourage crime. Do you think that this is something that you could see also being applicable into this place, where there's maybe some sort of reasonably prominent cameras, you walk in, some sort of sign saying, recording happening here? I can imagine that.
Present?
Yeah.
Well, maybe not going on where it's present, but how would you think that would discourage a shooter, or do you think that would invite them in?
I don't call cameras safety devices. They're not doing anything except showing us what happened after it happened. And in a situation like that, it's just showing us the tragedy again, and maybe some people will learn from it. But in that sense, how do you want your church to look? Do you want it to look like an armed camp? No, you don't want prison cameras and big lights on the corners and stuff like that.
We do have security cameras in our building. We currently have 24 security cameras in our building that we can personally monitor and view, but we don't put anything in our church that says that you're being recorded or that we have cameras, but we have them all throughout our building monitoring all of our entrances and exits.
I mean, I'm not joking at all, but I actually think it'd be a cool idea to have like a discreet, maybe a quasi-discreet sticker that just says, as you know, welcome to our house of worship. You know, armed guards present.
Armed guards present.
There are some churches that have done that.
Oh, that?
Some pretty big signs. Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think the security camera thing, I think, works. I'd love to have one outside of the children's area.
Right.
You know, put cameras in the children's area and put a
Okay.
little sign up that says, you know, we are doing surveillance there. I think that's good.
Okay, well, I can actually feel the energy from the tens of thousands of people that are watching this right now, and the energy I'm feeling is like, hey, when are you going to give away the first gun? Yeah. So let's do it. Max, do you have the winner or not? Yeah. Off the camera. Here we go. Number 1. All right, so I will read the first name. First name of the winner is named Bruce, and to help further isolate that person, because there's probably a handful of Bruces right now who are awfully excited. The email starts with the letters BAM. That's Bravo Alpha Mike, BAM. So if your name is Bruce and you have email that starts with those 3 letters, congratulations. You just won a brand new Glock 19 worth slightly over $600. And I personally love those guns, so I hope you enjoy it, Bruce. All right, next up we have, oh boy, I'm screwing it up here. Yeah, time for another video, but just to remind you guys, so I'm not going to be giving away 1, not 2, but 3 of these Glock 19s, so you got to hang in there. And every once in a while, when I start to feel that energy from you guys saying, hey, what about the guns? I will give another one away. But also, don't forget, I know that there's been a whole bunch of discussion already, and plus emails coming up to this that, hey, tonight is a great time to start your USCCA membership, for you to join the USCCA family. Obviously, there's hundreds of good reasons in terms of the product and everything that we offer, but we're also giving away an amazing bonus package tonight that's worth over $600. So if there's ever a time that you need to get pushed off the fence, now's the time. So I really want you to consider that. More on that a little bit later. So Max, thanks for the winner. Bruce, we will reach out to you to let you know how to claim that prize. All right, let's move on to the next training video. And Max, if you're ready for that, let's do it.
Philip and the Ethiopian is a story that we probably know very, 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 very well. In fact, Philip, who's one of the disciples, is traveling, and as he's going along, he encounters a scenario where there's an individual who has a situation who's going on in their life, and they have something that's coming up, and he has to intervene in that situation. He has an opportunity to talk to them. He has an opportunity to share with them the gospel and share with them what's going on. So I want to summarize the story. It's a long story. We don't have time to go through all of it this evening, but I want to share with you kind of some of the things that are going on in that story rather than reading the whole passage.
I think we've heard quite enough. I have something I need to say. And no.
Okay.
You back up.
All right.
You people need to hear this. You two, get back. Stay back.
All right,
I'm
man.
warning you.
I'm back.
I'm warning you.
It's all right, man.
All right,
Say what you
everybody
wanna
needs
say.
to hear this. This is important. This is a message.
Say what you got to say.
This is a message. All of you sit in your ivory towers and you do nothing. You do nothing to help the poor. You do nothing to help the homeless. You do nothing to help anyone. Back up. You do nothing to help anyone except yourselves. Well, now that I have your attention,
Okay, that was a fascinating video. For me, that one was hard to watch because I'm like, oh man, this is not going to be good. I couldn't think of any outcome that was going to be positive. Of course, essentially what he did was when he got everyone's attention, then he turned the gun on the crowd. And so that leads us into this next batch of questions, guys. And so this first question here is, how do you deal with someone like that who's threatening to harm themselves without escalating the situation? I mean, how do you do that?
I think Tom did a great job. He put his, in this situation, he didn't. I mean, he let him get up to the pulpit. I think you have to stop him. Put your hand up, say stop, approach him, start talking to him really calmly, and try to get him out of the sanctuary or the worship area. I think you have to do that. Once you allow him on the pulpit, you've lost control. he's either going to shoot himself or the congregation, and it's exactly what happened.
Yeah, and taking control of the situation very early on. And like Ron said, you want anything that's going to escalate, anything bad that's going to happen, you want that to happen outside of the sanctuary. You want that, at best in the lobby and even better out in the parking lot. Mm-hmm. Get that person outside. And that's part of the safety or security team's job, is to realize to interact early. As soon as something is out of place, let's just escort that person out and find out what's going on. We want to talk about that somewhere else. Mm-hmm. When you're in that whole crowd, it was so easy to go from here to here. Right. And it's when the gun comes out, something bad is going to happen. You need to stop that situation before that gun comes out.
And when you looked at the data, did he actually hit anybody in the congregation?
Yeah, I believe he got shooting? 2 or 3 people right down in the front row and front 2 rows.
So there's real consequences then for not stopping between that first scenario and the second scenario.
Right. And we're always looking at that action defeats reaction sequence right there. By the time our security officer realized that it was no longer a suicide but now a homicide, that he's got at least a half second before he can put rounds on target. So.
Wow. Something else that I noticed too, and I think we were talking about it actually kind of before we went live, was when we were talking about these scenarios here, was the fact that, let's go back to the AR-15 one, the one that happened before tonight. For those folks who may not have caught it, the shooter actually opened fire with an AR-15 right in the sanctuary before then switching to a Glock as a secondary handgun. And something that struck me is the fact that he got a lot of rounds off. And the officer, the security team member, was putting a lot of rounds at him. Mm-hmm. But again, going back to Ron, something that you made the observation of is, look, 2 people would have been a lot better than 1, a force multiplier almost. Mm-hmm. And that's where, look, having that concealed carry member, even if you're not necessarily an official member of the security team, that could have saved Lord knows how many lives at that point.
And there's lots of discussion points on what happened in that scenario as our bad guy Wyatt came out with the rifle. Our security guy knew something was going to happen. We tricked him enough to kind of put him off guard. But he said afterwards that he was shocked when he saw the rifle come out. And that changed the whole ballgame for him. But what you did notice too is something that I tell people all the time is in that sanctuary, all of the worshipers went to the ground, and the bad guy is still standing up. So you have an almost perfect target isolation opportunity right there. So it becomes safer to engage that target and put some rounds on him, in a situation like that.
So playing the role of somebody at home, what happens if there is no target isolation? What happens if people are running around and some are ducking and some are popping back up? Do you just keep firing as long as there's nothing between you and your crosshairs? You just keep putting rounds on that guy to stop the shooting?
Shoot until the threat stops. And then we're also getting into that, what we call the greater danger theory. Are your actions that you're using to stop this danger, is his actions a greater danger than yours? He's going to shoot 24 people. You might hit 1 innocent person while you're shooting at him, but you have saved 24 innocent people to do that. Still something you have to live with. Not the best outcome, but better than just allowing him to do what he wants to do.
And in some scenarios, we've noticed that the bad guy with the gun, when he stands up and he gets a reaction from somebody else with a gun, now he focuses on that person.
Right.
So the crowd then has a chance to get away. He really gets tunnel vision from what I've understood in talking to the bad guy, that he just focuses on the gun, and everybody else can scatter.
Cool. Another question just came in, guys, more having to do with the legal ramifications of addressing a shooter like in the last video that was threatening himself. So here he is, certainly somehow, unstable, got the gun to his head, talking a little bit crazy. What if, you decide to use force against him? What's the situation there?
As a law enforcement officer in the state of Wisconsin, I'm not allowed to use deadly force to stop suicide. That, it becomes very difficult for me, and then they drum that into our heads at the academy. But again, how quickly does it go from suicide to homicide? Right. I'm always in that reactionary mode in something like that.
But what about from the perspective of the responsibly armed citizen, the concealed carry permit holder?
I'm looking at that as an imminent deadly threat right there, because I can articulate to an attorney like Tom, if he was the prosecutor, hey, Tom, this guy could have at any moment started shooting people. I had to do something. And at that point, I'm thinking that reasonable people are going to say, yes, you had to do something.
And I think one thing that didn't occur that the security guy should have done, unholster his gun. That was a full half a second or second.
Yep.
And if you unholstered your gun and prepared, you don't have to point it, but just be ready in case that gun moves, and he has a chance to act.
And whenever a gun is out, we want people to move to a position of cover or at least concealment. Don't stand out in the open. I don't want you there negotiating, standing face to face. Negotiate from behind cover. If you can get this guy into a dialogue and maybe talk him down off the edge before you have to use force, great, but don't do it from out in the open.
Okay.
So what I'm hearing is do something.
Right.
If you're in the congregation and if somebody puts a gun to their head and starts walking to the pulpit, the last thing you should be doing is sitting calmly in your chair doing nothing.
Correct.
You need to be getting out of there, reaching for your gun, at least taking cover and ducking. Do something.
Yeah, we're immediately into the run, hide, fight scenario. What are you going to choose to do at that moment? If you're going to run, commit to the movement and get out. If you're going to hide behind something that will stop bullets. If you're going to fight with every opportunity you have, any tool that you need to get this person under control.
And I think the next question would be, if I'm sitting there as a congregant member without a gun, what do I do? And I think if he's got the gun at his head, I'm starting to move.
Yeah.
I really need to leave.
Yeah.
Because the next second could be my life.
Right. Nothing good is going to happen at that point.
Right.
Right.
And just to play devil's advocate on the person's question of what can happen or what can you or cannot do, I don't know. Keep in mind, I'm a Wisconsin attorney. I'm a former Wisconsin prosecutor, so I can only speak to what I know, which is Wisconsin law broadly. So the laws may be different in your state. That's a very fancy way of saying what I just said, is I don't know about your state. But generally speaking, what Kevin said is absolutely right insofar as if this person is holding a gun to their head, yes, they can turn it on you, but I assure you, I know many current prosecutors and I think even many members of law enforcement who are going to say, okay, so somebody's holding a gun to their head, how does this put you in reasonable and imminent danger of death or great bodily harm, which in Wisconsin is our standard. So I think that that's one of those things where I think all of us can see that, thanks to our training, about how that can go very quickly from one scenario to an entirely different one, from one ugly one to just a living nightmare. But that doesn't mean that the prosecutor, it doesn't mean that the judge or the jury is going to necessarily see it that way either. So there's no clean-cut answer on this, because I think that this is one of those scenarios that reasonable minds can differ, and I have a suspicion that there's a number of lines that people may see things differently on, depending on what camp you come from. But that's a horrific scenario from a legal situation, because we could pack that witness box with every single expert talking about the fact that this could have been a homicide, this could have been a homicide, this could have been a homicide. But keep in mind, if you pulled the trigger while that gun's still pointed at his head, that's what the prosecutor is going to ask the jury to focus on when they go back and deliberate. So just keep that in mind.
Tough spot.
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in for sure, but just keep that in mind.
Good. Thank you, Tom. Good point. All right, team. Awesome questions, guys. Keep them coming in. We really appreciate the opportunity to help get some of your questions answered. Starting to get that energy again in terms of, I think it's time to give another gun away. So Max, you can start getting ready for that. But first, I just want to remind you guys that, as I mentioned before, tonight's a great time to join the USCCA family. I mean, this is truly a community of people that ultimately we're just like you. We're trying to, on a daily basis, keep well-trained, well-educated in terms of being that frontline protector. And a great way to help you push yourself over the edge to start that USCCA membership is we give away a lot of cool bonuses. And tonight the bonuses are including a really cool Kershaw knife. You get that for free, an awesome cleaning kit, tons of training, a hat, a bunch of other stuff. It's really, really a good deal. So Max, I'm ready for the winner. Do you want to hand that over to me? I feel like, who was the old Tonight Show host?
Johnny Carson.
Johnny Carson. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. So the winner of the next Glock 19, worth over $600, is, his first name is Matt, M-A-T-T. The email starts with M-A-T-T. So I'm guessing that there's a chance there may be multiple Matts whose email starts with Matt.
They now think they won. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah, so if there's any additional letters in the email, maybe that might be handy. Max, there's not? Okay. All right, well, congratulations, Matt. You won a gun. Okay, so now we have another live training broadcast video. This is another special video that Kevin and his team put together. I'm sure if you've watched some of the live training broadcasts in the past, you're like, hey, this is a little bit different. Now there's some new special videos that we never got before. And that comes from my request to Kevin, that Kevin, every time we do one of these things, it has to be bigger, better, faster. And you do a pretty good job of keeping up with that.
Whatever we're doing this week is better than what we did last week.
Oh, excellent. So, all seriousness, Kevin goes through a really cool training technique in this next video, so let's roll it.
In this training element, we're talking about engaging a bad guy in a crowded situation where you need to make the shot. One, you don't want that to be a really long shot. You want to get up close. But two, how can you figure out an easy and safe way to train for something like this? Well, I saw Instructor Zero online talking about the intelligently controlled targeting system, which is basically hanging a target on a long pole, and then you got a moving target out in front of you controlled by your assistants when you're working in the training environment. So what we've done today is we set up 2 of these targets on the end of 10-foot poles, and then we'll be shooting at a moving target with an innocent in front. So we've got to pick out the right shot, and we've got to make that shot when the target's moving. We'll be using the UTM pistols so that we can do this indoors in a safe environment. I've seen other people use this with live fire, but I'm just not ready to do that yet. So we want to use UTM. The marking cartridges will show us where we hit and make sure that we only shoot the bad guy. All right, let's see how this works. Stop! Get down! This is an outstanding training drill that requires you to focus on the bad guy target, your front sight, your trigger control, and do everything you need to do to make an important shot in a crowded area.
You know, you really have to hand it to Kevin and his entire team here. They're always out there hunting down the latest and greatest education and training tools for our members. It's one of the greatest things about being a USCCA member. It puts an end to all of the guesswork. No more searching for good training and just hoping that it works. Kevin and his guys, they'll find it for you and put it right at your fingertips. That's why now is the best time to take advantage of your USCCA membership. We've now got more training and education benefits than ever before. I'm talking exclusive access to weekly training drills sent straight to your inbox, dozens of guides, ebooks, and checklists, members-only video library, and just tons more. Plus, when you upgrade or activate your membership right now, you'll also get our largest and most expensive bonus package ever, 100% free. That's up to $609 of the USCCA's best training and gear, including that razor-sharp Kershaw knife, and that thing's worth $50. I'll even throw in a universal handgun cleaning kit that's worth $49 if you act tonight. So please don't miss out. Hey, as a brand new USCCA member, you'll finally have the peace of mind knowing that you've got the education, training, and legal protection that you need to confidently defend the people that you love. All right, we're almost ready to draw that last gun winner. But first, it's time to share that brand new true self-defense testimonial that I've been promising all night. It's the story of a USCCA member who found out the hard way that you're still vulnerable even if you do everything right. All right, Max, can we roll that tape?
Hello, my name is Bruce. This is my wife, Connie. We've been managers here for 5 years, living here for 8 years. When I started as manager, we only had 2 families here with children. And now we have somewhere around 15 or 20 children in the park now. We've grown as a community closer together, helping each other out, looking out for each other, keeping crime down. I try to guide people where I can, when I can. They come to me, and if I can help them, I'll help them out. I'm a reverend, so that goes too, and talking to folks about their eternal life.
But when 2 armed men put his safety and the safety of his entire community in jeopardy, he got a rude awakening. So it all started when Bruce was simply doing maintenance around his home.
Noticed the truck coming in. It was a tow truck. It was kind of out of the ordinary.
Bruce realized that the 2 tow truck operators were physically attacking his neighbor. He tried to de-escalate the situation and repeatedly asked the 2 men to stop.
So I started walking up there to see, as manager of the park, if there was anything I could help them out with. You know, anything I could do for them, call cops or whatever. Saw the tow truck come around the corner up there and stopped by the car. Pretty soon I hear a lot of yelling and screaming and waving arms, and the car was parked over here, the tow truck was parked over here on the road. I was back there by that arch at the end of that other trailer back there. The car owner was in physical altercation with one of the tow truck operators. I had seen him throw his arm up and turn away from the tow truck operator. I didn't realize exactly what happened. Next thing, the car owner yells at me to watch out. The tow truck operator stuck his hand in his pocket rather abruptly, looking at the car owner, and then he looked over at me, and I just had a gut feeling, just a knot in my stomach, and something was gonna go wrong real bad. I proceeded to protect myself, anticipated that he was reaching for a weapon, a gun, and I had brought mine out. And I told him don't pull it out, because he had his hand in his pocket over something. And I just told him not to bring it out, just needed to get in his tow truck and leave. I didn't want the situation to get any worse. The man, I told him to keep his hand in his pocket until he got to his truck. And then I allowed him to pull his weapon out and put it away, because I just wanted them to leave. When I called dispatch at Lake County Sheriff, I told them that I was in fear for my life and for other people being hurt.
He was kind, he was compassionate. The situation he found himself in was one that it was merely because he was going to help a neighbor who he perceived was in trouble.
It was an unnerving episode. I never dealt with the police in this way. I'm glad I had USCCA there to help me. Went and stood over here on the concrete and waited for the police to show up, and they did, believe me, in force. First responding police department sorted everybody out, who was who and who was doing what. Lake County Sheriff showed up and they asked me, who's got the gun? And I said, I did. And then they had me go over here laying face down.
The police searched the tow truck and discovered the handgun. They even spoke to other neighbors who had witnessed the entire incident. But at the end of the day, Bruce was the one taken to jail.
I had a knock on the door, and then I went, got in the car with some other people and wanted to know if I knew my husband was sitting on the ground up there handcuffed, and I said no.
When they had me on the ground, I already had my wallet out with my USCCA card. I was trying to get a hold of them on the phone. They were intent on handcuffing me.
Even though he feared for his life and was coming to the aid of a friend, Bruce was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. It didn't matter that the other men were armed. In fact, they were allowed to leave the scene.
The officer came to the window of the car that I was in. He said, I was told to give you this card to call USCCA for your husband.
With that one call, Bruce got the help he desperately needed.
Talked to a lady, and she said she would contact an attorney for me, so he would be getting back with me. She made me feel relaxed, for sure.
I spoke more with his wife because she was the only one who had access to a telephone initially, and we were really concerned about getting Bruce bonded out. He'd never been to jail before.
The attorney called me and said that he'd already talked to somebody about Bruce and that he'd be taking action and getting him out as soon as possible.
People were reaching out to my office, giving testimonials about Bruce, of how helpful he is, how much of a good guy he is. You know, the fact that he was a veteran, the fact that he would go out of his way to help folks in the community. They really went out of their way to make sure I had the ammunition, no pun intended, that I needed to defend him. He was a good guy, and that I could tell the police that this is not the type of guy that would do what they were accusing him of. Getting that feedback from the community was instrumental in getting the case dismissed and having him exonerated of the charges.
When my wife called the USCCA, they posted bond and I was out in 4 hours. That was a phenomenal experience for me. I was able to sleep in my own bed that same night. It's almost indescribable feeling of relief and the feeling of confidence having a lawyer in a situation like this and having the help and the resources provided to me by the USCCA.
It's absolutely necessary that a competent attorney gets involved immediately to steer the investigation, to interact with police, to make sure that there's ability, that bridge between the accused and law enforcement so that the communication can be had.
I highly recommend the USCCA membership to anybody who's carrying a weapon. You leave home with your weapon, leave home with the USCCA in your wallet.
All right, I'll tell you what, watching that Bruce's testimonial really does a good job of helping me remember and truly understand why what we do here at the USCCA is so important. I mean, what a horrible situation that guy was put in, and obviously did the right thing, but just got caught up with some police officers that didn't quite see it the same way, and thank goodness we were able to be there and get him home with his family. I remember from watching that testimonial, he was pretty excited about getting out of jail in 4 hours, so good for him. All right, so we got a few more housekeeping things to wrap up, of course, the most important thing is we're going to give one more gun away. And so before we do that, I know Max is fervently writing down the name and putting it in the magic envelope again. But I just want to remind you guys that all tonight, you've got a great opportunity to become a USCCA member and get that awesome bonus package worth over $600. You know, if you have any questions about USCCA membership, now's a great time to call in. Our entire member service team is literally waiting for your call. The number is 877-677-1919. Also, if you want to chat, we've got all sorts of, I think there's like over 70 employees that are working late tonight, just manning all the chat streams so that you can ask your questions, get all your answers so that when you decide to start that USCCA membership, you're 100% behind it. So Max, I'm ready for the name, third and final winner of the Glock 19. Thank you, sir. Yeah, there it is, winner number 3. All right, so the third winner of the Glock 19 is, first name is Ed. So Ed, congratulations. Your email, just to confirm exactly which Ed it is, email starts with ESI. So if your name is Ed and your email starts with ESI, congratulations, you just won a Glock 19. You're the third winner tonight, so great job. Before, I think we were talking as you guys were watching that video before, that I think we have time for a few more questions. But before we get to those questions, I just got a few quick comments because, so I understand that there's a handful of people out there that for some reason still haven't decided to start their USCCA membership and join the family and become a member. Now I completely understand that. I went to engineering school, I'm an engineer, and I like to make very well-researched, detailed decisions, and I want to make sure that, especially with an investment the size that a USCCA membership is, I want to make sure I'm making the right decision. So I kind of feel like so far this evening we've done a really good job of giving y'all a lot of good logical reasons of why to join the USCCA. There's fantastic education, amazing training opportunities. There's the best legal protection that money can buy. Not only that, but there's all kinds of resources, amazing community, and tons of fantastic bonuses that you'll get when you start your membership. And those are the logical reasons. Those are the reasons that make sense. Like, okay, you know what, this does make sense. So let's put those aside for a minute. And I want to talk about, I guess, how I want you to be able to feel. Let's say tomorrow morning. I want you to be able to share that same feeling that I feel when I wake up in the morning, knowing that I have complete confidence that if something were to ever happen and I had to defend my family, I had to use my gun to protect my daughter, my kids, my family, that I would have the exact people that I would want behind me. I would be a part of that family, part of that community, and ultimately I would be just one phone call, just like Bruce was, one phone call away from the folks that are going to help me. Because guys, the bottom line is that there's two types of people. There's people who prepare and people who are in denial. And I want to make sure that you're on the side of the people that are prepared. My good friend Dave Grossman, Dave Grossman, I remember the first time I picked him up at the airport, he was going to speak for the USCCA, and he says, Tim, there's two kinds of people in life, people who prepare and people who are in denial. And denial is not just another river in Egypt. And Mr. Grossman made a great point that day, and I truly believe that when you start your USCCA membership, you're not in denial, because denial is simply hope, and hope is not a strategy. So one last little component that I love to throw out here when people are going through that process of deciding, geez, should I join that USCCA family? Should I become a member of this community? I want you to think about some of the other things that you do in your life. For example, we do all sorts of stuff to protect the things that we own, right? We protect whether it's protection plans for your cell phone or your home or even your car. But does it really make sense to protect your self-defense actions? So I propose that the primary reason that you do that is because the one thing that you could lose in a self-defense situation is something that money can't buy, and that's your freedom. And that's probably the best part about the USCCA membership, is that the one thing that you can't replace, your freedom, is a thing that we can help you to protect. So I really want you to think about that. So one last thing I'll say before we get to the additional questions is that I challenge you. If you're sitting there right now, if you've watched this thing tonight, you've watched all the videos coming up to this, and you're seriously thinking to yourself, man, should I join this USCCA association? I challenge you, if you own a gun for self-defense, if there are people in your life that are depending on you to be that first line of defense, I want you to join. I want you to become a USCCA member, because ultimately I want to be there for you when you need me. When you need to make that call, I want our critical response team to respond, and that's why you need to become a member. Tonight's a great time to do it, guys. There's probably never going to be another bonus package just as good as this. The easiest way to do it, I'll hold your hand through this. Just call 877-677-1919, or you can click on the big button below and start your membership right online, all on your own. So members, don't forget, we've got a special offers for you. Just click on the members button and you'll get that as well. So let's dive into a few more questions before it's time to go. And one of the questions that Max keeps firing over to me is, and I think this is probably going to initially get directed over your way, is the question is, how do we get started? What's the best way to get started with our church group, or even your own personal path? So what would you say to that?
Well, I think being a member of USCCA is a great start. I think it gives you a lot of resources. This training night and the videos that we produced, that Kevin did, are fantastic. And there's many other proven ground videos. I think that would help the individual and the church. And I think that's really, really important. There's other resources that you do have. One is I've written a book called Keeping Your Church Safe. It's available online at the major retailers. I think that helps start the team and put it to the next level. I think that's important. But like you said, Tim, get started. No matter what you do, get started. Start the conversation in your church with its leadership team. Find someone in the congregation that's willing to take charge and do it.
And we offer a book called Countering the Mass Shooter Threat. And again, there's a lot of information out there. And like Ron says, just get started. Do something and take that first step forward. Ron will be a guest at our Concealed Carry Expo in May in Pittsburgh.
Excellent.
He'll be presenting out there. You have to start having the conversation. We talk about this all the time. You mentioned, Dave Grossman and don't be in denial. These things do happen. They may not be all that common, but when they happen, they're tragic. And if you could do something to stop them, would you not want to do that? And those are the questions that start that conversation rolling. And then just find out as much as you can. Learn your local laws. Get training with your firearm. Make sure that you're practicing. Make sure that you're talking to the other people around you so everybody knows what's going to happen when something bad occurs.
And bringing this kind of back full circle to where we kind of started off with what the pastor was saying about, the story of Philip and the Ethiopian, Philip having to be the teacher to the Ethiopian who wanted to be taught. Depending upon where you are in that journey, whether you're the Ethiopian, whether or not you're Philip, just remember that by the time you get to Philip, be Philip for someone else. Grab someone else and bring them on the journey. Take a good friend, take a family member, and then take another and take another and take another. Remember, you've committed and invested to this lifestyle, to this knowledge. You know what it's worth. Teach it. Bring others with you.
Great advice, guys. So just to summarize, in terms of the getting started thing, Ron talked about his book. There's all sorts of USCCA resources as well. But I think the best advice, which you both said, or all three of you said, is that just start something. Don't wait for it to be perfect, because guess what? It's never going to be perfect. Just start that first step. whether it's education, whether it's a conversation, whether it's, I mean, heck, maybe what you watching this right now is your first step. And if that's the case, then good for you.
And you'll always be able to learn more. You're never going to have it all.
Yeah.
So start somewhere and start learning as much as you can.
Yeah. And don't underestimate how important or how valuable that first step that you're thinking of taking could impact your church or your community. So, if you're watching this, there's a reason that you are, and I challenge you to take that first step. So, all right, great question. Last question of the day, guys. What are the advantages of having a pro Second Amendment attorney familiar with guns, and how much do attorneys cost? See, do we have an attorney on the board? Oh,
let me take that one, Tim.
Well, look, very briefly, I represented a gentleman some years ago, and I was not the first attorney he hired. He hired who he thought was just a top dog attorney around town for his case, and his case was a classic case of he didn't win the battle to 911. Someone pulled a gun on him, he pulled a gun back, he didn't call 911 first, bad guy did. And now all of a sudden, even though he was entirely cooperative, he's explaining his story to the police while in jail, as opposed to maybe a better route. What caught my attention when this gentleman contacted me, and this was some time ago now, was something that this other attorney had missed, and something that I think that most of you, particularly if you're into handguns, would pick up on in a second. And that's that the complaining witness, the bad guy who won the race to 911, said that our guy pointed the gun at him and cocked the hammer back. And he was very specific in the witness statements and everything else about the fact that he cocked the hammer back. And he said even he used his thumb to do it. Well, I looked at our guy, the second I read that in the witness statement, I went back and I checked the police reports and looked at the evidence inventory and realized that the firearm that our guy was using, that my client was using, was actually a striker-fired pistol. So for those of you who are keeping up at home, there's no hammer to cock. Long story short, this began a ball moving, which within a matter of weeks resulted in our client's case being entirely dismissed, no trial, no motions filed, no stress or more sleepless nights. That is one very easy, low-hanging fruit, and believe me, I could keep you all here very late at night because I'm an attorney, I talk, it's what I do. But long story short, you want a real-life piece of information, you want a real-life data point on the value of having a pro-Second Amendment attorney, that's just one, and I assure you that there's countless others, and if you talk to pro-Second Amendment criminal defense attorneys who are experienced and qualified in your state, you're going to find many other such examples. The problem, though, is how do you gain access to those people when you need them? Because if you have somebody who is both a pro-concealed carry, pro-Second Amendment attorney, and is likewise a qualified and experienced criminal defense attorney, I assure you that they are a very odd and frankly expensive duck. Criminal defense is not a profession that lends itself, if you went to any of the same conventions that I have to, that lends itself to being maybe pro-concealed carry and pro-Castle Doctrine and pro-Second Amendment. Understand that your pro-Second Amendment attorney, this person is going to be tacking right in a very different world. This person is going to be incredibly unusual. And the result of that is that if they're good, their services are going to be uniquely in demand. Breaking it down for you separately, expensive. Think very, very expensive. And here's the problem, and for those of you who have watched these live training broadcasts before, you know what I'm about to say. When we get the call from you, usually it's not you calling from out of custody or something like that. That's unusual. Usually what the call is going to be is it's not going to be from you, it's going to be from your spouse, it's going to be from your daughter, it's going to be from your son, a brother, a sister, a loved one, or best friend. Those are the people who are going to be calling us because you're behind bars. You have some sort of fancy plan that you're going to execute, you're going to call this person to do this and do that. It's not going to happen because you're going to be behind bars. And even if maybe you're lucky and that's not the case, don't plan on it, okay? You need to have a plan in place. Are you going to be going with the no plan? Are you going to be just risking your future and maybe your family's future and everyone else's future that you love and who count on you to just a roll of the dice? a roll of the dice of, I'm going to be able to afford the best person. I'm going to be able to hire the help that my family deserves. The, oh, well, maybe I didn't go with USCCA. Maybe there's some other option that I decided to go with. But boy, I'm locked into their attorney. I don't have my own choices. Do they pay for your bail to get you out of jail, by the way? Do they cover expert witnesses and other costs? These are all things that you need to be asking, and do your homework and do it well, because this is not something that you're going to be able to undo and redo when everything is on the line. There's a reason why I'm sitting here when it comes to looking at what all these different personal protection options are. And I'm here because this is the only place to be once you do your homework about what the options are out there and what they look like. There's no reimbursement of, I'm going to pay out of everything cash out of pocket, and maybe down the line someday I'll get a check that's coming my way. That's not a plan, that's a promise. And you know what? Promises don't pay attorneys. Your bank account does. You know who else pays attorneys? These guys do. So if you want to go out and you want to do your research now to find the best concealed carry, the best pro-Second Amendment, the best criminal defense attorney that your family can deserve, that your family can afford, then you're talking with these guys and you're in the right place. And I would strongly encourage you to really take a close look at what they're offering. Thank you.
Wow, Tom. Appreciate it. I can't imagine having an attorney that didn't know the difference between a striker fire and a cock and gun. That's interesting.
Very few. Very few know that.
And that truly, I mean, from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate the plug. And yes, I mean, the USCCA is hands down the best solution for responsibly armed Americans, and it's all about, it's a three-legged stool. It's education, it's training, it's the legal protection. And we all hope and pray that we never have to get to that legal protection phase, and one of the ways that we handle that is with the education and training. And that's part of what happened just tonight. And last but not least, man, all you folks who are watching this right now, whether you're a member, whether you're a prospect, whoever you are, I applaud you for being that person that wants to just learn more, become that better protector and defender, and that's what you're doing right now. So I honor you. It's such an amazing thing to be able to lead this community, and it's just a dream come true for me. So from the USCCA headquarters in West Bend, thanks again, guys. Take care and stay safe.